man, what's going on, man? We are here, man, back in RTM Newsroom, man. Myself, Adell, Henderson, representing Real Times Media and all of the amazing brands that we have. And sitting here with my colleague, A.R. Shaw, representing Atlanta Daily World, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, man. We just got through checking out this debate, man. We're here in Georgia. We're both here in Georgia. We had Senator Ralph Warnock along with Herschel Walker. Man, what are your thoughts so far, man? Just based on what we just saw.
It's gonna be an interesting race, man. I say that it was definitely I don't know, weird debate. A lot of times it seems like they were talking over each other. Sometimes they weren't really answering the questions. Seems like they had talking points on both sides that they wanted just to kind of get out more so than engaging with the actual questions that were being asked during the debate. So that was an interesting thing. But I wrote down several notes as far as what kind of stood out to me, as far as what occurred during the debate. Of course, them talking about voting, the voting laws, SB 202, which is a major voting law that occurred in Georgia, which a lot of people say there was a lot of restrictions and really an intimidation tactic to intimidate some voters. They talked about that, which was very interesting. Warnock says that the bill made it harder to vote, and that was interesting coming from him to say that that there are some stipulations in the bill that made it harder. Of course, they also talked about abortion, which was
right.
Which was a major talking point. Of course, the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade over the summer, which is a major thing. And Warnock seemed like he wanted to kind of make a direct contact with a lot of the women who are voting about them taking away their right to choose. And Herschel Walker, he was pretty adamant about sticking to his anti-abortion stance, even though there's been several women who said he's had abortion. That he basically forced them to have abortion. So, they had some talking points. It was, like I say, it was they stuck to what they wanted to say versus kind of engaging with the actual questions that were being asked. But what were your thoughts on the initial?
Man, I'm thinking along the same line as you, man. I really don't feel as if either party took a major win or loss, which is surprising. You think about the idea of somebody who speaks for a living. Aside from Senator Warnock, being a U.S. senator, he's also a pastor. So I mean, he's a great orator. A great orator.
Yeah.
So that's something that he's accustomed to. And with Herschel, not so much. We haven't saw much from him, just in these speaking forums to where we consider him doing extremely well. But for what it was worth, I mean, he seemed to have, held his own. It does feel as if like, they had like all of the specific topics and okay, I got these specific talking points I'm going to go ahead and lay out. And it just feels as if, I don't know, man. It just feels like everything was so rehearsed, polished. I mean, nothing, really stood out. Nothing really on either side, made me feel as if like, oh man, that was an amazing point. Of course, we're gonna have like a few punchlines here and there, but I can't like it was very, very disappointing. It was. I don't know. I'm just kind of stunned.
Yeah.
It felt as if something that you sort of. I didn't think the debate would ever happen. Personally, I didn't think that Herschel Walker or his camp would ever agree to it. And it was like, okay, it's actually going to happen. I mean, you just think that it's going to be like this clean sweep, and it's about to be like a, just a hard thing to watch. But it really, yeah, it was pretty bad, man. It was pretty bad.
So, and of course, for our viewers, we will have Dr. Adrienne Jones, who's a Morehouse professor, who will be joining us in a few to provide her perspective. She's a political science professor at Morehouse College. She will be joining us in a few to give her perspective on the night and how everything went. But just, I guess, for what did you expect coming in? Was there some type of, I mean, because we all see that, Herschel Walker has said some crazy, outlandish things over the past few
Right.
months. But how do you think his performance was, considering all the things that he said coming into this debate?
Like I said, it's conflicting, man. I don't feel as if he took a major loss. I don't think he really gained much, momentum. But at the same time, I don't know. It probably helped him more than it hurt him. And the format of not necessarily the format. I think just like the tone of how the debate went, the questions. A lot of them were pretty questionable. Of course, we were expecting to, go over abortion. We were expecting to go over student loan debt. Even with, healthcare, that's something that's huge here. Crime, gun violence. I figured that would be a big topic that we would touch on. Like one of the things that's been extremely controversial, here in the state of Georgia, with Governor Kemp passing a bill just allowing, you to pretty much have a gun in this state without a gun license, which is crazy. And we talked about, Herschel Walker talked about some comments that Senator Warnock made against cops and making them feel bad and mess with their self-esteem. I can't imagine what it must feel like to be in law enforcement, knowing that it's so much easier for just any and everybody in the general population to legally purchase guns and not have so many different restrictions when it comes to getting a gun license, all of the steps that we're used to taking. And so if that were me as a someone who worked in law enforcement, that's something that would be a lot more threatening to me and making me feel as if like, wow, does the people that's in these elected official positions, do they really have my back? I mean, that just seems kind of scary, especially for blacks in particular. When they got to the point talking about gun violence and how the homicide, the number one killer, in black youth, deaths, which is mind blowing to even think about. And once again, it's just so much easier to get guns, to get access to firearms. And it's like, how could that be a part of the solution to help the challenges that law enforcement already has been experiencing in terms of just like, their mental health or, whatever, possible biases they may have had or, coming into the job or, just, I don't know. I mean, we just had like so many different challenges when it comes to dealing with law enforcement over the years. I don't see how these new gun laws, help at all. So, but even with that being said, with that being such a controversial thing, it just felt like it was something that was just brushed over in this debate. Everything that seemed like it had, room to, create like a lot of, serious, moments in this debate. It just seemed like these just really got brushed over, and especially knowing that this is very likely to be the only one we're going to get. This is going to be the only debate we're going to get, and I don't know. It just felt like a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, you talk about the gun laws. There was Kemp basically passed the gun law, saying that cops can't really there's basically open carries. You can carry a firearm, and they can't really, if you don't have a license, they can't arrest you
Right.
for having a gun, which is
Right.
which is insane. So, but Herschel Walker, he said he believes in the Second Amendment and the right to carry. Unfortunately, the right wing stance to I guess prevent gun violence is to have more guns. which just seems like a skewed type of ideology. But and we saw that in Uvalde that the mass shooting that, just because someone has a gun doesn't mean that that's necessarily going to stop the attack. We saw police officers had guns, but they wouldn't go into the school because the guy had an AR-15. So,
Right.
more guns doesn't really, from my point of view, it's always a political stance of what you believe in. I don't think that you take away someone's Second Amendment right by having restrictive gun laws. And particularly like a state like Georgia, where so much gun violence is taking place. You're right. It didn't really, neither candidate, I felt, didn't really nail that down as far as how can we stop this? How can we actually stop this epidemic versus just another talking point? I thought they really missed out on that opportunity.
Yeah, it was a lot, man. It was a lot, and truth be told, I mean, both candidates did some dancing, and so it was just really interesting. Some of the and I get like some of the questions that tapped into personal life. I definitely wasn't expecting to hear about Senator Warnock's divorce and child support. But I guess if we're gonna talk about Herschel Walker and things directed to his personal life, but then again, that's directly tied into things like lying about being a cop or not paying for an abortion. It's just, I don't know. It just seems it was the time went by so fast, and ultimately it just really felt like we got quantity over quality. I think I would have felt a lot better if they would have somehow figure out a way to just narrow in on certain specific things. I thought the question about, would you vote for Biden in 2024 if he ran, and would you vote for Trump if he ran? It's like, that's 2 years.
Yeah.
It's like so much. We already know. I mean, there's so much that could happen in the course of 2 days, let alone 2 years. So, that was a waste of a question, in my opinion.
I thought some of the questions were like off. Like I didn't really think that the moderators were particularly strong.
Right.
Seems like they were, just from my standpoint, it just seems like a lot of their questions were very like basic and borderline. It could have really gone deeper.
Right.
I mean, you asking a question about the Atlanta Braves. I mean, I don't care about the like. I mean,
there's a lot of things you can ask questions.
Why do we care about a time? Like, why are you asking these questions? It's,
Right.
It's just, to me, it's like, I understand that you gotta throw some type of theater into it to make it more interesting for the for people, but at the same time, there's real topics that need to be discussed, and I just thought that the moderators were rather weak at points with their questioning.
No, I totally agree. I'm sitting up here, student loan debt. Okay.
Well, let's talk about the student loan debt, and that's interesting now. And once we get Dr. Jones is actually, she's working to join us now. Is she in the backstage? Can you see her?
No, she's not here yet.
She's not yet. Okay, she's trying to join, but it's gonna. I want to definitely get her thoughts on the student loan question. You see her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey.
There we are.
I'm over here trying to watch the thing. You guys. I hope this is not live.
Of course it is.
No. Okay, well, Walker was much better than we expected, but the bar was low.
Right.
It was low, and I'm assuming that he was practicing, and that's excellent, right? If he potentially becomes the senator from Georgia, we would want him to be well versed in the issues that he's willing to talk about. At the same time, I think that Warnock looked confident about the issues. He is the incumbent. He's been doing this work, and I think he comes off as credible as ever.
So I want to formally introduce you, so our viewers can know, Dr. Dr. Adrienne Jones from Morehouse, the political science.
Dr. Jones on the street.
On the streets,
I
but
went to Manuel's Tavern here in Atlanta because I
Okay.
wanted to see and feel what other people. Obviously, this is a liberal venue, so the people here tend to be Democrats. But I was excited to see and feel and hear how people were responding, and the responses were visceral. This is Georgia. I feel like Georgians are so plugged into the state, so we all have political preferences, but I do want to say that I feel like Georgians are informed. I want Black voters in particular to become more informed this year and for 2024. It's extremely political today, ladies and gentlemen. It's important that we know what the offices do, that we know who we're voting for. So please, even though it takes extra time, we want to be out here doing a little bit of research before we show up to the polls.
I want to ask you a particular question, because there was a moment in the debate where they talked about student loans, and of course, Senator Warnock, you talked about student loan forgiveness. Of course, that's occurring with the Biden administration. Herschel Walker responded saying that he doesn't think that anyone should pay the debt that's owed by someone else. That was basically his response. So let's talk about that. You being a professor at Morehouse, just what were your thoughts on their answers when it came to student loan forgiveness?
I mean, first of all, the interest on student loans is so high that you heard Reverend Warnock talk about how a person had paid back essentially the cost of her loan, and she still owed the cost of her loan. So, as he indicated, reform is required, but this term, our current administration has made some, has provided some debt relief. We're all paying taxes. We're all paying into the system that is the United States. Simple debt relief is not enough. Senator Warnock is correct that there needs to be debt reform. However, for a lot of working families, for people who are actually doing well, nonetheless, they owe these incredibly usury loans that, make it very difficult for people to take advantage of the benefits that their education has provided them.
Right. And, Amir and I were sort of going back and forth. Thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate you making time on this Friday night. It was just strange to see. One, I was telling Amir, I didn't feel as if this debate would ever happen. I didn't feel as if Herschel Walker would ever agree to it. And I'm thinking, like, when he did, I'm like, oh, this is going to be embarrassing. It's going to be, oh my gosh, this is going to be, just it's not even going to be fair. And it wasn't.
No,
I mean, it was, yeah. And the thing
and
is,
that is what one should be if one intends
right,
to be a senator from the state of Georgia to the United States Congress. So, I mean, I'm pleased that he was prepared. At the same time, we need to pay attention to who we think is going to be able to provide Georgia with the most educated, considerate treatment.
right.
I mean, sometimes these decisions need to be made sort of very quickly without, preparation. We've heard Herschel Walker recently and over the course of this campaign. We here in Georgia and people nationwide have been concerned about his readiness. Now, tonight we saw him look prepared for this debate, as anyone should be who's going to participate in a debate.
Right. And one of the things that, AR and I both were wrapping our minds around was like, man, was it, the short amount of time? Was it, the strength of the moderators? It just really felt like we got a bunch of canned answers. It's like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a take-home test.
I would
Here's
point
all
out
of the.
that I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
That Mr. Walker was preparing while Mr. Warnock was talking. I don't know if you were watching him while Warnock was
putting
talking.
his glasses on, yeah, grabbing his prop.
There were points at which it seemed as if he was slightly non-responsive because he did have sort of, I'm assuming, a schedule of answers and responses that he was interested in bringing forth.
Right.
I thought he did a good job also with looking directly into the camera at the people, which
Right.
Senator Warnock did not do so much.
Right.
That was a
Right.
touch that I thought was very effective. Here we are in the politics. The question is, who is going to represent Georgia most effectively? And so everyone out there should watch the highlights, watch the live debate if you have the opportunity, consider the issues that you feel like are important, and then, make a decision. Early voting is upon us. It starts on Monday.
Right.
And it's very important today in this polarized environment where voter election quality and security under question, although it should not be. We have a very low rate of voter fraud in the United States. I don't care how many years now we have been discussing the possibility that there is some. People need to be prepared if there will be long lines. I think that that's probably going to be better than in 2020 or 2018. But right now, it's really critical that you be informed, that you check out what happened at this debate, and that you make an educated decision about who you'd like to vote for and who you want to vote to represent us in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, I do feel as if no, go ahead.
No, like, so I guess for just being on the ground and having this like being at Park Tavern, what was it like? What was the atmosphere like? I know you say it was a liberal
warm.
place.
People were excited. Again, I came to Manual Tavern in Atlanta. It was packed. I asked to sit with some other people. They let me scoot in while we watched. People cheered and booed and clapped. This is a serious time, right? We are losing civil liberties and civil rights today. We are entering arguably a third Reconstruction period during which we need to be equipped to reinvent, fight for the kinds of protections that allow us to be citizens in the state of Georgia and in the nation as a whole. So I know a lot of people are like, my vote really doesn't matter. Listen, Stacey Abrams lost the runoff in 2018 by 55,000 votes. That is very small, ladies and gentlemen. Your vote matters in Georgia, and Georgia matters to the nation, right? This election matters to the 2024 election. So, even if you think it's not a big deal, just please, for me, do it this time.
Right. I was pretty shocked to see how much Herschel Walker he really didn't give any pushback at all when it came to whether or not Biden legitimately won the election.
I also did not ask him about the recent abortion scandal that we've heard about, although they did ask Warnock about his wife and the child support.
Yeah.
And, divorce is difficult, right? There's a good decade or two before
Very much
the thing sort of settles. People are excited when the divorce is happening, the struggle about who the kids belong to. I come from a divorce home, right? But after a while, things sort of start to. Warnock's not at that point, and neither actually is Walker. So, we're talking about real people who have real lives.
Right, and I'm thinking to myself, if you're going to bring up, the situation with Warnock and his divorce, you might. I mean, why wouldn't you bring up, Herschel Walker's outspoken son, who's been very vocal, about like, hey, you actually have a child saying like what dad did or didn't do or isn't doing, as opposed to like it, So it was just like I said, I found it very challenging. Just really, just having a lot of confidence in the moderators. It's like, I know it's a tough job, and you got a certain mindset going in. You're trying to get through so many different things, but
I had the impression that the moderators were very canned too. Like, I felt like they did not divert from the paper that they had been given.
Yeah.
They didn't.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't give any riffs on the questions that were provided, which in this kind of a situation, I personally would prefer. Right? Something where you are because you are listening to the ongoing debate, you are editing the questions slightly. Perhaps that was not a part of the rules, right? You saw Walker getting a lot of trouble for not following the rules. So perhaps they had decided that the questions that were listed on the page were the ones that were to be asked. But this is Georgia, and we're talking about a live situation. So I would have preferred a more organic, a little bit more freedom with regard to the questions,
Right.
and a little bit more innovation depending on what the answers were from the candidates.
So there was a moment where they said there was a prop. Can you talk about that moment? Did he pull out a police badge?
I think it was a police badge, and
Okay.
apparently that was against the rules because the moderator became very stern and explained to Mr. Walker that he had been, that he was supposed to be clear on the rules and that this was a violation. He did put it away, but I feel like he got in trouble a couple of times. And, kind of like the voter fraud claim, there's a lot of claiming that there's a problem when there is not one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Am I saying that properly?
Right.
So that it's like you're blaming me for the abuse that you are giving to me.
Right.
It's an important time.
Yeah, that was a thing that he said. He said that he wanted to make sure that the election was fair. That was
Exactly.
So
and when you say that, you raise the specter of the idea that the election is not fair.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you, everyone, the elections in the United States are fair. The presidential election in 2020 was recounted 3 times. We are clear that the results were fair, that they reflect the population of Georgia. And right now, we're under the specter of SB 202. Texas has changed its law. Other laws are changing. So we might enter a phase where our popular vote is not reflected by the electors who go to Congress. And next time, if we are not careful, it will be legal for illegal electors to go to Congress and represent us. And as Black people in the United States, listen, we cannot afford that. We are already limited by districting, limited in terms of the nation's interpretation of who we are and how much we are owed in terms of our citizenship. This is the real deal, everyone.
It really is. It really is. And being that we
don't know how to say it.
Right. Being that we knew that there was limited being that we knew that it was limited time, I would have loved for them to just, if anything, put so much more focus just on Georgia, because there's no way you're going to be able to cover everything and be as effective as you would like to be. So I would have loved for them to do that. And for people outside of Georgia, what they don't understand is not only is voter suppression very real here, but the whole idea, you have certain people that go to the polls and they're literally standing out there 7-8 hours, just attempting to vote. And I don't think that people really comprehend that outside, because the world is watching this election for so many reasons.
Okay,
but those are very important things to address. And it's like, you can't bring them food, you can't bring them water while they're waiting in these long lines. It's just like,
excuse me. So first of all, let's say thank you to the many Black people in 2018 and 2020 who stood out there in those long lines, because the equipment was not sufficient in areas that are predominated by Black people.
Right.
And number 2, let me again repeat, I need you to get in those lines. I need you to be motivated by the fact that they are passing laws designed to suppress your vote. If that's the only reason why you do it, to be to push back against the system, please.
Right.
Because there's only so much elasticity that democracy has, and we are losing it right now. They ran on the Capitol. They have run on the governor of Michigan.
Yep.
She's a white woman.
Yep.
Now, we are also going to have to use other methods. Protests will have to continue. I need, I'm at Morehouse College. I'm trying to train people to be interested in careers in law. We need people to engage in a third Reconstruction where we rebuild some of the civil liberties and civil rights that we are about to lose in the next Supreme Court term. It's all hands on deck out here. I know that we are familiar. Oh, I was going to say, I was interviewed the other day and the person was asking me about people after the emancipation and how they didn't know about the right to vote. And so how they didn't know what they were missing, essentially. But now, if you were to remove people's right to vote, they would know it. And I want to say the opposite. People who emerged from slavery knew the importance of the vote. That's why they fought for it for a century during Jim Crow. Today, we are complacent because we have had the right to vote. We expect to be able to participate in the polity. We think we are citizens. And I'm telling you that that is not a permanent condition. So please get out here and do the thing. Engage in these debates. This was extremely entertaining also, right? It's enlivening to see your representatives debate and talk about whether or not they're the best person to be represented. Please get into this. Learn about what the governor does, the Secretary of State, the Lieutenant Governor, the Attorney General. In 2024, we need to know the judges who are on the down ticket. And that's going to mean doing a little bit more work than we might ordinarily do. And everyone can do this. You don't got to be the smartest. I study voting so that I can come out and try to talk to you and motivate you to understand that it's a critical moment and that I need you to participate.
Definitely that. And I do feel as if this debate, if anything, I'm pretty sure Senator Warnock and his team is going to be that much more motivated to go, that much harder, because this wasn't the softball that a lot of us expected it to be.
Your boy was ready. Your boy
Go
was
figure.
prepared, and he definitely came across much smoother, much his. We've heard him make comments about things before, and they were dicey. Tonight, he was pretty smooth. He had comprehensive answers. He had points. He lobbed challenges to the incumbent, Senator Warnock, and as well he should. However, and I don't want just people just voting. I want you on the election board. I want you working for your county. I want you canvassing. I need you a poll worker, poll watcher, right? And I need you emulating that for your family so that Black people are doing that over the next course of a century. Jim Crow lasted a century. There are cases on the Supreme Court docket this year that can return us to that posture.
Right.
One being affirmative action.
And two being affirmative action, two being voting, also LGBTQIA rights. Okay. And I was asked recently also, could we return to a situation where there are whites only on the, or segregation? Yes, we can. The day before the Nazi Holocaust, everybody thought things were cool.
Wow.
They went to work. They were preoccupied.
Wow.
Listen, this is serious business.
Right. I was thinking coming in that at some point I'd be able to ask a question to both of you about, your biggest takeaways or, the highlights of, one or the other, something that one or the other may have said. And I'm not quite sure if we really got like a big bang, but the question I would like to ask the both of you, and you started, Dr. Jones, with this, like, what are some of the things, because this should scare people. The way that this debate went, it should concern people the same way a lot of the poll numbers have, leading up into this debate. So based on the individuals, one side or the other, what are some of the things from here, until November? What are some of the things that we need to take ownership of to make sure that we not only get ourselves to the poll, but encourage others not to wait until the last minute?
Oh,
You can
you need
start
to
voting
vote
on Monday,
early.
all these things. What are some of the
You
things
need to
right
vote
now?
early. I need you to vote early. You need to vote early. We don't want any complications. We want the number count, the ballot count to be clear. We don't want to have drama on election day, which is possible.
Right.
So you need to get to the polls before that.
Hmm.
Also, of course, the voter website, the MVP, often sends you to the wrong location. During the early voting period, which begins on Monday, you can vote at, the local place that is open. It doesn't have
Right.
to be your assigned place. So please, people have tight schedules. They've got to work. They have children. They have responsibilities. And the goal here is for people to take a little bit of time, think about when you can go, and go during this early voting period. So you've already lobbed your vote. It's locked in. And then, you will be a part of the final vote count and not have to worry about being stressed out, being in a long line on election day. Because on election day, it's D-Day. If you're in
Come
the
on.
8-hour line,
Come on.
that's a much more stressful situation than if you go early vote and for some reason it's crowded, you can go the next day.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
all do that. Because, and plus, Georgia is important to the entire nation. So
Yeah.
even if voting is something that you don't think is a big deal for you as a Georgian, this year, in 2024, and even in 2020, you aren't just voting for us here in Georgia. You're voting for the trajectory of the entire nation.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
No, so true.
if you can absorb that responsibility from me, I hope that you will make an early voting plan, make a morning of it, take your neighbors, take you some water and some Danish,
Right.
get your Starbucks before you get on the line, so that watering does not matter. Because under SB 202, there is more flexibility for the state to determine who the winners are. And we want the vote count to be very clear, win or lose, so that, the results that we send to Washington in 2024 are the results that reflect the cumulative selection of the people in the state.
Exactly. AR, what are some things that come to your mind in terms of just like, man, the work that needs to be done right now? I know we have a standing responsibility as journalists, but just overall, what are some of the first things that come to your mind, especially coming out of this debate, based on the work that still needs to get done? Because we're not close to being there yet.
Yeah, I definitely say vote early, but I want to talk about one of the talking points that was in the actual debate. Medicaid is big in Georgia. I think a lot of times people only think about Atlanta when it comes to Georgia, but Georgia, we have a lot of rural areas where they don't have access to clinics, they don't have access to hospital, and you have people, a lot of Black individuals who are in these small counties who don't have access to Medicaid because Governor Kemp refuses to take the money. It's money that's on the table that should be taken, and
he's paying out that PPE money though.
He's paying that out, but he won't take the Medicaid. So, and there's 600,000 Georgians who fall through the gap, who don't have health insurance because they won't take this money. So I want voters to really understand the repercussions and not get caught up in the distractions, is what I call it. There's a lot of distractions in this election, and look at the actual issues. There are actual people in the state of Georgia who are going to suffer because they don't have health insurance. A lot of women are going to suffer because they can't get an abortion. So we have to understand what the overall repercussions of this election is versus just the distractions that we have had over the past few months. And even in this debate, there was a lot of distractions versus actual talking points that need to be addressed. So that's what I want people to really take away from this debate.
No,
the maternal death rate here is incredibly high,
especially for Black women.
Black women, everyone, your sister, your auntie, your mama, your community people. What your brother is saying about, expanding Medicaid is very important for Black bodies in the state of Georgia.
No, that is really a big deal. And yeah, for me, like voting early, I mean that's everything. It's I can't remember the last time it's taken me more than 30 minutes to
Yeah.
be from my car back to my car,
That's true.
you know, by early voting.
It's pretty
So
quick.
yeah, it's something that I mean we have to go ahead and make the decision. You know, yeah, I do it tomorrow. I do it tomorrow. No, just get it done. A lot of times I will drive by. I've had situations where I'm driving by the place where I normally vote, and I'm like, man, there's nobody there. I'm on my way somewhere. Like, let me just stop and vote real quick.
Yep.
You know, I mean, there's been plenty of times that I've actually done that, and it's like you get it out of the way, and you know, it's like you just really have to put in perspective too. One thing that I don't understand why it hasn't registered yet. If your vote did not count, if your vote did not count, why is voter suppression so real? Right?
Listen,
Why
they
is
would
there
not be
so much?
trying to press your vote down if it didn't matter.
Come on. It's like that's basic math right there. If your vote did not count, you know, if your vote didn't count, like why did we go through so many recounts? You know, to try to find votes. Like these are things that, you know, we heard more in this last presidential election than we've had, you know, heard in years. So that's the part that I just don't understand why it has not registered to people that, hey, your vote counts. It matters. Like, you know, make it happen. And it's also one of those things, if you're still one of those conspiracy theorists who don't feel as if, like, what will it hurt to
This is
actually
what
do
I'm
it?
saying. Let's say that you think your vote doesn't count. Just could you do it anyway? Just do it
Right. What is it going to hurt? What's it gonna hurt? Especially if you're voting early.
You can just then if it doesn't work, you can complain. That'll give you more fodder for, you know. But I guess my concern in looking at voting over the last 15 years is we're at a point where we're going to lose the power of the vote. So it's not going to
Mm,
matter if you vote.
mm,
So this is why I'm asking people to vote this time and in 2024. Because if we don't get this together in this polarized federal government environment,
right.
you know, we're going to enter an authoritarian government, dictatorship, fascist. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what the outcome will be, but it's not going to be democratic. And it's not
Mm,
going to allow you to have any input on elections.
right.
I teach American government, and I've been clear for a decade that I'm working on borrowed time unless
Wow.
I become a historian.
Wow. Okay, that's scary. And hurtful.
It's the real deal. It's the
uh,
real talk.
whew, wow. I don't know. I think that might have been a drop the mic, you know, and hopefully that
It was
will
a
help.
pleasure to talk with you.
Hopefully that encourage people to run to the polls to go ahead and
I hope
extend
so.
that time. You know,
Run.
please.
Run.
Dr. Adrienne Jones, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time. We
You're
know it's a
welcome.
Friday night, and you know we took more of your night. It was weird. It's a weird time for them to do the debate anyway.
Totally crazy.
But
It
the
is.
fact that they did, glad we had a chance to get your thoughts and your opinion. We're looking forward to having you back and having some more
Okay.
discussions as we move along. As always, you know, A.R. Bernard, A.R.
I'll be
Bernard,
dressed next
wow.
time.
A.R. Bernard,
I
that's
won't
that's
be in
that's
the
my old
streets.
that's my old pastor. No. That we love you being in the streets. I mean, it really
Yeah.
gives us that much more of a truer sense and feel of what the people are saying and feeling.
Yeah.
And so no, that's great. But you know, A.R. Shaw, like what are your thoughts as we wrap this up?
No, I thank Dr. Jones for joining us. Being at Manual Tavern, of course, for those who are not in Atlanta, it's definitely a place where a lot of journalists, a lot of political figures, they go to and hang out and they bounce ideas. So she's at ground zero when it comes to the political center of being somewhere on a Friday night to watch a debate. Dr. Jones is right where it's at. So I really appreciate you for taking the time to join us on this Friday night and taking away and stepping away from the scene just to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It's so nice to meet you, gentlemen.
Oh, absolutely. And on behalf of Real Times Media, which consists of a lot of our amazing brands, including the Atlanta Daily World, Atlanta Tribune, Michigan Chronicle, Chicago Defender, New Pittsburgh Courier, We thank you for joining us in the RTM newsroom, and we'll go ahead and continue the conversation, and we'll catch y'all next time. All right, thank you. Appreciate y'all.
See you later.
All right, thanks a lot.